Good morning and welcome to Litvinov in the north of the Czech Republic. We're right up by the border with Poland and it's a cold, cold day. What we're going to be doing today is trying to find some ruin porn. I'm off-roading with a company called Off-Road Safari, and we're going through the industrial parts of northern Czech Republic, of the Bohemian uplands. So there's lots of volcanoes and things like that up here today. Thank you very much. And Jesus, some castles and things like that as well. So hopefully it should be interesting. Mostly though, I'm hoping for ruin porn. At the minute I'm walking along this bit of road, and about 20 or 30 meters under us is a town called Most that the Soviets destroyed and covered with the soil that they dug up from the coal mines that are all around us. So underneath us, 30-40 meters, there's just loads and loads of tunnels. This was built during the Second World War by the Germans. We're in the Sudetenland at the minute, and it was a sort of chemical plant. It was bombed by the Americans, and the first bombing raid killed 600 people and shut down production, but then they tried to rebuild it and it was bombed 17 more times. So that's a bunker from the Second World War where all of this was built. There were lots of sort of forced labour camps around here for prisoners of war and people who'd committed crimes against the Nazis and things like that. So I think 15,000 people died in this factory when it was first working under the Nazis and just worked to death. There's a camp around here that was called Camp 29, and it was meant to be one of the most sadistic forced labour camps. It wasn't an extermination camp like Auschwitz or something like that. It was just for working, but it was meant to be one of the most sadistic places in the whole of, under the whole control of the Nazis. So pretty horrible. My guide Martin is saying that it was carried out by Nazi sympathisers from Romania and from the Baltics and things like that. It wasn't actually done by the Germans. The Germans actually had to try and keep control of the people from the Baltics. This is an old coal mine, Julius G or Julius 3, and it's now a museum, but it's only open during the spring and summer, unfortunately, so we can't go in. But it used to go 100-200 meters down underground, and it's where they dug all their coal from. And there's another Nazi bunker over here. Pretty much everywhere has a Nazi bunker attached to it. And apparently, in communist times, because the Czech Republic was one of the main targets of nuclear bombs, just in case the Russians decided to send their tanks to Germany, every single business, every single house, every single municipality, town, county had to have enough bunkers for all of the people working in them. 100% of the people had to be able to get into a bunker if they needed to. Thankfully there was no nuclear war. Earlier I said that we were above the town of Most, but we weren't. We were above Old Litvinov, and we started in New Litvinov. This is Most over here, New Most, and underneath this frozen lake is Old Most. So the communists filled it all over with water and built a whole new town. The only thing they saved was a church that's just here that you can't see. And apparently apparently it still is the largest ever thing moved by rails, and they moved it like 420 metres, and hundreds of thousands of tons worth of church just moved, and apparently it's a very beautiful church. And this is the start of the Czech uplands, these mountains, and they're sort of volcanic mountains, batholiths, so there was magma under the ground that gradually the topsoil above it got eroded away and just left these big bits of basalt.
You can see old leaves. Yeah.
How old are these?
Yeah. Between 17 and 20 million years old.
Yo. Wow.
Still the structure of wood can be seen like this, but it is hard stone.
So this is what the landscape looks like before it's been covered again with trees and with grass, and new animals have been introduced to it. This little bit here is a coal seam, but this whole area looked like this for 30 or 40 years, and they called it a moonscape. So this is the church that they moved, and I think I said it was moved 400 metres earlier. It was actually moved 841 metres and 10 centimetres, all 12,000 tons of it. And the only thing that didn't really survive was the clock tower, church tower, but they rebuilt it. But apparently when you go inside, it sort of all looks a little bit Soviet, a little bit communist. And up here is a hrat, or a castle, and that was destroyed in the 30 Years' War, and then the local villagers of Most, the town under the lake, used the stone from the castle to rebuild everything, and so it didn't exist until about 100 years ago when they decided to rebuild it to have a little tourist attraction. But I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it looks exactly like something out of Game of Thrones. We've just had a lovely filling station lunch. We were offered to go to a restaurant, but I sort of just said no, we'll just have a sandwich, and that's grand. But over lunch, Martin was telling me about working down the mines. He's been working down the mines for the past 2 months, 200 or 300 metres underground, shoveling coal, and the conditions just sound appalling, to be honest. Dust everywhere, and having to carry 60, 70, 80 kilogram pieces of iron or steel about, and things like this. And people do this for 30, 35 years, 40 years. Just amazing. But also he was telling me that miners here earn 15,000 crowns a month, which is approximately £500 or €500 maybe, which is just crazy. I don't know how you could live on £500 a month here, but you must be able to. We're at the open cast coal mine now. There's all this massive machinery that is the biggest I've ever seen. This is an excavator for sort of emergency use. This coal is stored just in case everything breaks down in the mine. But there's a big power plant a few kilometers this way that needs 20,000 tons of coal every single day, and they produce 40% of the Czech Republic's electricity here. So if it stops, then Czech Republic's in trouble. But yeah, we're going to go and see this mine. It's going to be huge. This is the open cast mine then, and it's massive. It's the biggest man-made thing I've ever seen in my life. And what is happening is this bit here has all been filled in already, and this scar here is where the mud that filled that in from. And they're just going to keep cutting round and round and round and round and round until they get to these mountains. So these are the strangest cooling towers I've ever seen, and they're kind of pretty. I kind of quite like them. And this plant supplies steam to the nearby towns for heating and things like that. But I just think these are quite amazing. Such a strange shape. Okay, so this mine here is 200 meters deep, and it's just absolutely massive. It's the biggest thing I've ever seen man-made in my life, and they're planning on cutting the whole way around here, and maybe even into this little village here. They're going to possibly destroy it. So there's something like 300 million tons worth of coal still under the ground here, and they plan to cut it all up if they can do. But we're going to head up. There's a little castle up here, and we're going to go up and have a look from there and see what it's like. But it's far too cold now to be standing outside for too long, so back into the car. Before all this mining started, this used to be the biggest lake in the whole of Czechoslovakia, or the Czech lands as it was at the time. And you can see the big black pit just here. The lake was a bit further down, but it was drained in the early 19th century, early 20th century perhaps. There's 56 square kilometers of mine here, and it's all just destroyed the land, and they just want to keep going and going and going until they get all this coal out. And the thing is that this castle apparently was where one of Beethoven's symphonies was first performed. Beethoven spent some time here, Goethe was here, and then it was a prison for the Nazis. It's where they kept Charles de Gaulle's brother and other people that they couldn't kill. And then the communists tried to destroy it. They wanted to mine everywhere.
You can do some shit and be like, what the fuck, but hey.
It's kind of amazing. The wasteland. It's a proper wasteland.